Over the last few days, I've just been kind of playing with random hardware. I broke out all of the old graphics cards I've had just to see if I can get any surprising results out of Fidelity FX. And this GTX 280 that I have is absolutely hideous. Like, this thing is disgusting. So I bought this GTX 280 out of the back of someone's car when they brought some other parts, and it's hideous. It works. It's just rather disgusting. So I figure you guys would find some satisfaction in me just cleaning it up and talking a bit about the GTX 280. So this is a Founders Edition card. It comes directly from NVIDIA. It is one of the first, I believe it is the first, in the GTX 80 series. So at the time, NVIDIA was kind of weird. Like, I mean, obviously they still are pretty weird with naming, as all tech companies are. But at the time, they were using, like, I think the 8800 or 9800 GTS. So they were using the words kind of backwards. So how do you even take this thing apart? I guess I'm just taking screws out and going from there. At the time, this was not the most powerful graphics card that you could buy from NVIDIA. The 285 was more powerful, and the 295 also had a dual GPU setup that was also more powerful than this. This launched on June 16th, 2008, so just about 13 years ago. Wow, these screws are quite difficult to get out. It has 1 gigabyte of GDDR3 on a 512-bit bus, so a pretty impressive bus at the time. And it runs all this on a PCI 16X 2.0 connector. It has 2 power connectors, an 8-pin and a 6-pin, to power its 236 watt power limit, back when, you know, power limits kind of meant something. And by the way, guys, if you're thinking that the 3080 is a good price, this was $650 back in 2008. So quite expensive at the time, and with inflation, it's probably even more. So when they moved to the 200 series, this is the Tesla, it's founded on a 65 nanometer, and it was made by a relatively familiar by today's standards, TSMC. The GPU clock runs at a staggering 600 megahertz. Not quite that 1 gigahertz barrier yet. The shader unit's running at about 1300 megahertz, and the memory runs at around 1100 megahertz. And remember, that's GDDR3, so not exactly super powerful by today's standards. Seriously, I have no idea how to take this thing apart. We're just winging it at this point. It has 240 shading units, 80 TMUs, 37 ROPs, or raster output processors, 30 SMs, and a whopping 256 kilobytes of L2 cache. No L3 cache in sight. Seriously, how do you get this thing off? I have to take these screws out. Ooh, that's a painful noise. Surprisingly enough, it does have SLI connectors. Seriously, this thing will not come apart. And I thought new Founders Edition cards were hard to get apart, and this one is being particularly complicated. You that are just really good at hiding screws. It does feature DirectX 10, and there is some DirectX 11 support in there, but it's not a lot. A lot of titles that run DirectX 11 will prompt you saying that you need DirectX 11 to run this. Remember, that's hardware based, so there's not a lot you can do to run these titles otherwise. Wow. Actually looks like there's some thermal pads for the VRAM back here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 VRAM modules back here. And it looks like there's VRAM modules on the other side too. So, wow, these are some pretty small VRAM modules if there's 8 of them on this side. Wow. It's like, what is this? Just some like plastic shielding. Oh, I guess this is conductive. So they didn't want this rubbing through back here and shorting on the back panel. Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to clean that up. All right, there's no other screws, but oh, there are more screws back here. So let's go ahead and take these screws out. Let's not forget to put them back on. Wow, they are tiny screws. Even my super tiny screwdriver is hard getting down in them and making sure I don't strip them out. Now, do you want to come apart? Please. Oh, there it goes. Wow. Go ahead and get the fan disconnected. Wow. These cooling pads just look like they're just haphazardly slapped on there. It is very dusty. So there it is. Let's go ahead and clean up this die. I mean, I call it a die. It definitely has an IHS on it, using my beautiful roll of paper towels that Ham got a hold of. It's nice that you don't have to worry about cracking this die. It is underneath a very impressive heat spreader. Let's go ahead and get all this thermal paste off of here, so I don't get it all over my hands when I'm trying to clean this off later. Wow, this is actually pretty neat. So you can kind of see all of these little processors in here, or transistors. I'm not sure what they are, but they're shiny. Like, they're very shiny, like most silicon like dies are. I'm not really sure what to call these. They look like little microprocessors of some sort, little processing units. I'm not sure. If you know what these are, just leave a comment. Like, they look like some kind of power modules. I mean, obviously you have some pretty old power delivery going on here. I don't know what this little connector right here is for. I know these are power connectors, obviously. I'm not that dumb. Looks like we have an LED over here where the LED shines through this acrylic, and then you have a green little light out the back when it's good. The PCB is absolutely disgusting. Anywhere that it can have corrosion, it kind of does. Looks like these memory modules are made by Hynix. I'm just gonna get all of this old thermal pad material off of here. I'm gonna replace it with just using straight thermal paste. I'm probably never gonna come back into this GPU. Nobody's gonna realistically use this GPU for any amount of time other than some testing. And straight thermal paste should do just fine. Like, I might regret it in the long run if I have to go back in here for anything. Say if I want to do some weird power mods to this thing, but I'd rather just use straight thermal paste. It's pretty much all this stuff is. It's just thermal paste with like a weird fiber mesh to keep it together as you put them down and take them off. Again, if this was a newer GPU, I would definitely just be replacing these with actual thermal pads, but because this is so old, I don't even want to waste the materials on it. I'm going to leave these back ones intact. They don't look too bad. I'm just going to clean up the back plate. Let's go ahead and take apart the cooler. Like, focus on taking apart and cleaning up the cooler, because I know that there's probably a pound of dust in the back of this thing. These screws are incredibly hard to get out. They're very tiny, and their thread pitch, or their pitch on them are not quite right for any tool that I have just laying around. Oh my god, this is absolutely disgusting. Although, surprisingly, we do have some heat pipes in here. It's a very impressive blower-style cooler going on here. We have one heat pipe that looks like it is specifically for the power delivery area. And then we have 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 heat pipes coming off of this die here. It's funny, the power delivery goes straight to the GPU area. I guess it, I guess it would kind of hang off at this edge here. So it does get cooling and not, well, actually, it looks like the power delivery goes straight to the GPU, which is an interesting choice in cooling stuff over there. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to question it too much. Yeah, this thing is absolutely disgusting, especially where the fan is blowing. There is a lot of crap down in there. Got to clean that up. And then the inside of the shroud, it's dusty. It's not overly disgusting, but it's dusty. Let's go ahead and pull the fan out of there. So for the fan, it feels okay. Like there's a little bit of bumpiness in there. Doesn't seem like it comes straight off. Don't want to break it because it's not like I can get a new one of these. And wow, it does. Doesn't even have like a swappable center part. Although if this fan did die, you could just slap a 120 fan to the front of this thing and pray. I mean, I probably could just put this in the dishwasher and it would do just fine. Actually, I probably could put this entire thing in the dishwasher and it would do just fine. All right, so I'm just gonna start by cleaning off the barrel fan here. I have a paintbrush that I use for this kind of stuff. Obviously, if I wasn't making a video about it, I would probably just throw all this stuff in the dishwasher and call it a day. But because we're making a video, I want to at least have some visual cleaning satisfaction. I mean, look at all that dust in there. Let's go ahead and wet it down a bit with some alcohol, just to break up some of this dust. Because this dust is some nasty stuff. It's looking better, I'm not gonna lie. This fan is actually the most disgusting fan I've ever seen. Man, this fan might be worse than the entire rest of this GPU combined. Like, holy crap. There's some stuff caked in these fan blades that does not want to come out. Alright, I think I did a pretty good job of getting that clean. That is some nightmare fuel levels of dust. Like, holy crap. But we did it. We got it pretty clean. Clean up the NVIDIA logo there. So that looks pretty good compared to what it was. Spins nice and smooth. Let's move on to the backplate. I'm going to clean the outside of the backplate first. Just going to use some Windex on this because it makes a pretty streak-free shine. Man, what is the crap on this poor GPU? Man, this is really a workout for me today. I did not expect this to be quite as difficult to clean as it has been proving to be. But hey, that's just maintenance life for you, right? Gotta maintain your GPU after 10 plus years. Looks like this upper edge next to the SLI connector is corroded, so there's not much we can do about that. It's just the aluminum in here after, X amount of years and whatever moisture it might have been stored at, it just started creeping into this aluminum here. So, there's not much we can do there, but we can definitely work on getting the rest of this clean. It's actually quite impressive that this is a aluminum backplate back in 2008. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I wouldn't say that it's perfect, but this card will probably never be perfect again. Just gonna go ahead and dust off the inside of this real quick, just with the paintbrush. And then get the big stuff with the actual paper towel. The inside of this backplate is coated in like this plastic, so that if it does ever flex and touch any of those parts while it's on, it doesn't short them out and kill them. I don't think this needs to be super spotless. I don't want to peel up these and do anything there just because of how complicated that. I don't want to disturb any of that stuff. it's memory cooling, and it's memory cooling for GDDR3, so I can't imagine that it's creating the most heat in the world, but obviously older parts ran pretty hot regardless. I mean, it's all just a relative to the performance at the time. Let's go ahead and clean up the shroud. Again, if I put this through the dishwasher, it would probably be a lot cleaner, but I also risk melting some of these plastic parts. Although, if it's meant to withstand a GPU, it's probably going to withstand the dishwasher. Now, this shroud is pretty scratched up, so you can still see a lot of the scratches on it, especially in the light. It's not going to be perfect, but, you know, at least we're going to get a lot of the gross buildup on it off. I think there used to be a sticker here that said GeForce, but it has long since been peeled away. Then back here, I'm not going to worry about showing you all the serial number on this. I doubt there's any warranty left on it. Grab the microfiber here real quick. Just maybe aid us a little bit in getting this slightly reflective. You know, used to be a really good card. I want to make it look like it is a semi-high-end GPU from 2008. I say semi-high-end. It's definitely a high-end GPU from 2008. All right, so we got the back plate, we got the outer shroud, we got the fan clean. Let's get to work on this cooler. Just use my hand. Let's go ahead and just start by cleaning all this off. So I'm going to do a neat little trick here, and I'm going to try to backfeed the dust through. So I don't want it to get just trapped up inside of there. If I went this way with it, it would just get pushed in. I want to try to get it to go that way out. God, there's just so much dust on my table from this. Steve, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Ow! Cut my finger there. Be careful when you're cleaning your blower style cooler. You could cut your finger. I have my tetanus shot. I'll be fine. The fact that I have to confirm that is kind of worrying about the state of the GPU here. Honestly, I think this is probably okay. Like, I would like to clean these fins out some more, but at the same time, it would require me going in the other room and maybe running some water through it. And then it's probably still not going to get a lot of this out. Like, there's a little bit of dust in there, but it'll be okay. It'll blow out when I turn it on, probably. Alright, and finally, the main star of the show here, our G200-300A2 die. That's all that is for that die. Let's go ahead and just clean the crap out of this thing. I'm just going to dump it on there. I don't even care at this point. Little tiny microcontroller there. I'm not sure what this is for. It's interesting, there's a breakaway tab here for the PCI slot that has never been broken away. So I doubt this latches into a PCI slot correctly. It might, but let's go ahead and just break that away real quick. Just take a pair of pliers, just break that away. It's very weird that that has been there for the past 13 years and nobody thought to break it away. Let's go ahead and get this just a little cleaner. Get out any of the big stuff that's residing in there. God, these connectors are so rusty, but there's really nothing I can do about the rust on the connectors. Only clean up the I/O shield as best I can. Okay, so it looks pretty clean. I'm going to go ahead and put it back together. So first things first, let's go ahead and put the barrel fan back in its home. Go on, buddy. Get in your shroud. It'll spin weird, but this goes on first. put the cooler back down in there. Get it all situated. Let's get all of our screws in there. Let's go ahead and put our fan screws back in. I thought they might have to come off to take the cooler apart, but we don't. So I'm just gonna go crazy putting thermal paste on this this IHS. It is humongous. And then we're gonna put some on each one of these memory dies. We're gonna put a little bit on this controller down here. I'm gonna put some on each one of these transistors, I want to call them. So each one of those is nice and you know, they have a corresponding part that touches them, so it will get cooling. Let's go ahead and flip this over. Make sure all of this, oh yeah. Don't forget to plug in your fan, like I just did. Make sure the fan wire does not get crushed when you go back together. Just kind of wiggle that around. Just get that thermal paste nice and spread around on there. Now remember, there was 2 screws here that we took off after we took the back plate off. And now all we have to do is drop this giant back plate back on. Remember, we didn't mess with these thermal pads at all. I didn't want to disturb any of them. They look okay. Go ahead and snap the back plate onto the cooler. And I'm going to start all the screws before tightening them down. Obviously, I want to start them all so that if any one of the screw holes don't line up, I can still manipulate it. If I tighten them all down one at a time, you can end up getting halfway through and then some of your screw holes stop lining up and then you have cross-threading and it's a nightmare. So I want to go ahead and tighten up the middle 4 first because obviously they're the die. On a GPU with an exposed die, you want to kind of keep this a diagonal pattern, but because this has an IHS, you're really allowed a lot of leeway. Alright, and there it is. Our GTX 280 all cleaned up and ready to be put back into kind of just our test suite. Like, we don't really bust this thing out for anything, but I wanted to give it some love. You know, it was a very powerful card at the time. There was not much that could rival this beast. So to have it sitting there in such a disgusting condition, I couldn't let it. So let's go ahead, plug it in, fire it up, and just run some benchmarks. Almost forgot these screws on the end here. I was a little worried there. I thought that this did not have a fan off mode, and the fan wasn't running. But lo and behold, the fan just started working, so we are okay. We're running a nice, chilly 22C. That is really cool. All of our VRM phases actually have temperature sensors on them. That's another very odd feature. I've never really seen that before. It's funny, for this, you have to use some really old drivers because obviously NVIDIA stopped supporting this hardware many years ago. After all these years, NVIDIA control panel has still not changed. So like I said at the beginning of this video, this graphics card only has support for really DirectX 10 and a little bit of DirectX 11 support. So you're really not playing any really modern titles except for like esports titles, because esports titles will play on almost anything. But the things you'll run into, say, you know, Rift Breaker, you'll just get the message saying, you know, you need DirectX 11, King's Hunt won't even launch, Terminator Resistance, DX11 feature 10 is required, so we don't have that. Cyberpunk, not gonna happen. Remember, this card was meant for games like Modern Warfare, like the original Modern Warfare. Remember guys, this graphics card came out in 2008, so it was pretty much made for this game. It's funny, I'm using an AMD Ryzen 3100 in this system, and it's only clocking in at like 10% CPU utilization. It's amazing how far we've come. God, listen to that coil line. Some good stuff. Yeah, this was the game I would argue to say was most played on this graphics card. Let's see, what else can we play? Let's play some New Vegas. This game was ultra high quality. She still got it. Obviously, we got some letterboxing going on here. I could play with the settings. It'll get 60 FPS in this game. It'll have no problem doing that. What about Skyrim? High quality. Oh wow, we're really using it now though. I'm sure all of this is set to high. I mean, like, obviously it's set to high, but it's so much fun to see these older GPUs perform so well in some of these titles that you really just don't expect them to perform well. And like, I don't expect a GPU from 2008 to perform well in Skyrim, even though I think Skyrim didn't come out too long after. It's like playing Cyberpunk on a 1080 Ti. Like, that's essentially what we were doing here. But it just goes to show this is a really good GPU, and you know, I'm really happy that I took the time today to, you know, go through and clean it up. It really deserved that. I mean, it looks like it served somebody well for many years, the amount of dust that we pulled out of this thing today. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out, guys. If you liked seeing PC part cleanings like this, leave a comment. Tell me about the dirtiest GPU that you've ever seen. Hit the like button. And guys, you know, today it's a little bit different. It's my birthday. So I'm going to ask you to get subscribed just for my birthday maybe. I don't know. Obviously, I'm going to continue making videos until I can't make videos. And until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.